All right, let's get right into it. The story of how Bernard Arnault built the biggest luxury empire on the planet, well, it doesn't kick off with some amazing win. It actually starts back in 1981 with a really crushing failure and a promise he made to himself.
This one idea, this became his North Star. For Arnault, this was never going to be about friendly business deals. Nope. This was about conquest, pure and simple. And that mindset, well, it changed absolutely everything.
So, let's rewind. Let's go back to that one critical moment. The moment that took a young guy developing real estate and turned him into, well, an apex predator in the business world.
So here he is, just 32 years old, and his big American dream completely falls apart. He goes back to France, not with his tail between his legs, but different. That failure, it didn't break him, it sharpened him. It made everything clear. No more playing it safe. He promised himself he'd hunt for a totally different kind of prize, something timeless, something with real power.
I mean, you gotta appreciate what a huge shift this was. He went from building houses for people to wanting to own the very idea of desire itself. This wasn't just a change in career, it was a total rewiring of his ambition.
So he's on the hunt, right? And then something pops up on his radar, an opportunity that, to everyone else, looked like an absolute train wreck. A giant, crumbling empire was for sale. Okay, so this company, Boussac, was a complete mess. Just a sprawling, old-fashioned business that was bleeding cash. But, and this is the key, buried deep inside all that wreckage was one of the most famous names in fashion history, Christian Dior. Most people saw a disaster. Arnault saw the crown jewel he'd been looking for.
And just like that, he made his move. He risks almost all of his family's money. We're talking $15 million. And then he somehow convinced the big-shot bankers at Lazard Frères to back him with the rest. He scraped together a war chest of $80 million to go after a company everyone else had already given up on.
And you really have to let the risk here sink in. Boussac wasn't just in trouble, it was losing almost $1 million francs every single day. It was a total corporate dumpster fire.
But then in 1984, after a really tense fight for it, Bernard Arnault takes control of the whole conglomerate. And the price? Get this, one single symbolic franc. Now, of course, the catch was he had to take on all its massive debt. But still, he had just captured a sleeping giant for less than the price of a newspaper.
So did he pop the champagne to celebrate? No way. The first thing he did was pull out a scalpel. He immediately kicked off one of the most ruthless corporate turnarounds of the entire decade.
This is the number that just shocked all of France. Arnault laid off 9,000 employees. Just gone. He closed factories, sold off entire divisions, didn't even blink. And the public, as you can imagine, was absolutely furious.
But for him, this wasn't random destruction. It was cold, hard logic. Arnault was convinced that to save the heart of the company, to save Dior, he had to amputate all the dying parts, no matter what it cost him in public opinion.
And here's the crazy result of all that ruthlessness. By selling off all those supposedly worthless assets, like diaper companies and old textile mills, he turned them into nearly $500 million in pure cash. He basically turned bankruptcy into rocket fuel for his real ambition.
So, with the financial bleeding stopped and a mountain of cash in the bank, Arnault finally turned his full attention to the prize. It was time to bring the House of Dior roaring back to life.
You know, before he got there, Dior was a name that was losing its shine, a financial weight just dragging the whole company down. He poured that $500 million into restoring its sense of exclusivity, its glamour, and almost overnight orders just exploded. What was once a burden became this elegant, powerful cash machine. His massive gamble had paid off big time. The profits from the new and improved Dior just started rolling in, proving that his wild bet was actually a stroke of genius. That first $100 million he vowed to seize, it wasn't a fantasy anymore. It was real.
But you see, this win was about so much more than just the money. It was proof of a concept, it was the creation of a blueprint, a formula that he could use over and over again to build an empire.
And his formula, when you break it down, is pretty clear. First, you need the vision to see the diamond hiding in the rough. Second, you need the stomach for ruthless execution, to cut away what's failing to fund what can succeed. And third, you have to have the courage to bet it all when the moment is just right. That's the playbook he would use again and again.
Because reviving Christian Dior, that wasn't the end game. Oh no, that was just the beginning.
It became the cornerstone, the cash engine that powered the creation of LVMH and allowed him to acquire over 75 of the world's most sought-after brands. All of it, this whole massive empire, it all traces back to that one audacious move. So it leaves us with the big question when you look at Bernard Arnault's story. Was it pure genius, or was it a kind of brutal ruthlessness that other people just don't have? Or maybe, just maybe, when you're building an empire, the two are impossible to separate.